Hello, good evening, happy Sunday halftime TV viewers and subscribers. Welcome to another episode of the World Cup Corner. And we saw a magnificent game today, Qatar versus Ecuador, and Valencia introducing himself, or should I say, reintroducing himself and reminding us that he's the man for the big occasion whenever it comes to Ecuador at the World Cup. This evening with me, I have a very special guest as we will be doing the preview for the England-Iran game that is to come up tomorrow. And I thought, who better to get on the show than one of the biggest English fans anywhere around town? If there's anyone who says they're an English fan and they don't come close to this individual, then I guarantee you they aren't an English fan. Before I get into that, big shout out to the sponsors, RS Sports Store and Quickling Shipping. Quickling Shipping, anything you need whatsoever shipped into the island, they have you covered on RS Sports Store for all your latest sporting clothing and apparel. Check out our sports store. So your Brazil, your Argentina, your France, your Germany, and more importantly, as we're about to talk about England now, your English jerseys. You can check out our sports store. All right. So without further ado, let me welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Simon Preston. Welcome, bossy. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, bro. Really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed that intro. I'm looking forward to the discussion and yeah, looking forward to what lies ahead. Certainly there's a lot of expectations of this team in particular, but I'm sure in a few minutes we'll get the nitty-gritty and break down the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses, and everything there. So I'm looking forward to it and hope you and the family are doing well.
All right. Thanks so very much, Simon. But before I even ask any question about the English team. How are you feeling about the World Cup so far? I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. The build up to the World Cup, it felt a little bit different. Even being a big fan of English Premier League football, it was just different in the EPL. Players were pulling away from tackles. They were shying away from the tough duels. And I had it in the back of my mind. Probably these players are thinking about the World Cup. They don't want to get injured. We've seen Benzema, we've seen Nku out of the World Cup, Paul Pogba, N'Golo Kante, Reece James, all these guys out of the World Cup. And it just gave that vibe that, okay, some of these players who are guaranteed their spots, they weren't giving enough going into the World Cup. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't think that this World Cup has given that same buzz and excitement like previous editions did. I haven't put my finger on it if it's because it's not a summer World Cup, a June, July World Cup, or if COVID had an impact on proceedings. Like just recently, I would say perhaps 3, 4 days ago, I just started to see people, at the stoplight starting to sell flags of the different countries and everything. So there is that small build up, but I do think by the time Thursday comes around and you see Brazil play, that's when I really think that on the island there will be that sort of impetus and excitement. Maybe that this game, the opening game that we had, Qatar versus Ecuador, wasn't the most exciting for many to watch, especially from the quality of play that we saw. But as the tournament progresses, heading into tomorrow being Monday and later, I think that World Cup carnival, that buzz, that excitement will slowly but surely start to grow. It is disappointing, those players you mentioned, the likes of Benzema and Pogba, and Gola Kante. It is disappointing, and when you're bearing in mind, this is still a quality French team. They've carried 10 players that won the World Cup back in 2018, and I think that has put a dent, honestly, in their chances of trying to retain the crown. But I'm looking forward to everything, and I'm looking forward to the excitement and upsets because, as you know, every World Cup there's that one team that goes on an amazing run. The Golden Boot winner, not the easiest to pick, so I'm looking forward to the drama that lies ahead.
All right, fair enough. We definitely are looking towards that Cinderella team, that team that comes out of nowhere and goes on a run that no one forecasted. And you spoke about the carnival and all of that when Brazil plays later on this week. And I went on the shopping mall today and I went into Nike to see if
Mhm.
I could grab a kit from. I won't tell you the team, but I was interested in grabbing a couple of kits for the halftime viewers and subscribers to see if I can get a few to give away. And folks were grabbing the Brazil jerseys like crazy. So we know the Brazilians, they will be coming out in their numbers. The same thing drove out on the street, a couple of cars passing by with their flags as well. So it's interesting to see what the vibe will be like when Brazil plays later on. But we have Argentina playing before Brazil. and we will be doing a preview for that one as well. And I'll have a very special guest all the way from Argentina. He works on a radio station down there in Argentina. So I'll have him on here to do the preview for that Argentina game. So stay tuned for that. All right, but enough about the teams that aren't in our list of teams that we're previewing today. The English team, Simon. How confident are you going into this World Cup? It's been 50 plus years since you won it. Last time around, you got to the semi-final. Some may say the first real competition that you came up against, you dropped out. You got to the final of the Euros. Should have won that one, in my opinion. The team that beat you aren't in the World Cup. And again, the English team of late, the last couple of games that they played, I must say, not very convincing. Not very convincing. We saw them show a little bit of impetus and gut in that game against Germany a couple of months ago. But apart from that, I must say, I haven't seen much from the English team to convince me going into this World Cup. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. This summer's performances in the UEFA Nations League has been very, very underwhelming. And you could say it has put a damp on expectations, not only from myself, but other England fans as well, in relation to what the team can be able to accomplish. Losing 4-0 to Hungary, drawing with the Italians and the Germans as well. As you said, a penalty shootout is really a lottery. It's a flip of a coin. So it could have gone either way there. There's still that criticism that with all the attacking gems that Gareth Southgate has, that he should be less pragmatic and a bit more brave with his decisions, you could say. Perhaps switch things up tactically, give Jack Grealish that freedom to play not only 30 minutes, but the full 90 as well. But that pragmatic approach, that pragmatic style, got into a European Championship final and also to a semi-finals of a World Cup. So I don't foresee a change where that is concerned. In terms of my expectations, I think I would be happy with going to another semi-final. My bracket has them in another semi-final and then going out in the third place playoff. But if it was to pan out perhaps on paper, it would be like an England-France quarter-final, and that is where many are expecting England to fall at the quarter-final stage, and that would end their tournament. Quarter-finals would be par. It wouldn't be great or something that would be applauded, but it would
But do
just
you think Gareth Southgate keeps his job though, if England bows out in the quarterfinal? Because the argument has been made in previous times that especially when it comes down to European teams that aren't Germany, because we know Germany is swashbuckling stuff. They've always been that team that scores a lot of goals, especially in the World Cup. Um, European teams generally play pragmatic football
Mhm.
in the big tournaments. We saw France win it, and folks would say, "But France was exciting." No, they weren't. France were conservative, and then they were hitting teams on the break. Right? Olivier Giroud finished the tournament without scoring a goal. So they were extremely pragmatic, and probably if France didn't win the World Cup, that same argument would have been made that they weren't expressive enough. They weren't expressing themselves So, do you think, because we saw Thomas Tuchel come in, if we were to talk about club football as well, very pragmatic, and he won the Champions League with Chelsea. So,
Yeah.
is pragmatic football the way forward when it comes down to tournaments? Because the likes of Brazil and Argentina, they've always been known to play attractive football. Germany, the same thing when we're talking about European teams. But from a European perspective, I don't see them going out there and expressing themselves like a Brazil or like an Argentina or even like Germany would do.
Yeah, look, you hit the nail on the head right there, in terms of those teams. If you don't have the players to play that sort of free-flowing approach, what more can you do? England do not have players like a Spain that sort of individual that can pass that sort of style of football. With all those players, you have to play to your strengths at the end of the day. And if you look at the caliber of English players, they are rapid and they can catch teams on the break. So
But
personally,
defending isn't your strength though.
with
The
that,
defending isn't
yeah,
your strength. So
it isn't.
and the best form of defense is attack, as we've heard time and time again. One of the oldest cliches in the book. The best form of defense is attack. So The England team taking Harry Maguire, Eric Dyer,
Mhm.
not the most convincing defensive unit. Kyle Walker coming back from surgery. Again, big question marks there. I think one of the most convincing defenders in this English squad is probably Trippier, right?
Mhm.
So again, I don't know, Simon, but I'm curious to hear what does Gareth Southgate need to change in order to win this World Cup?
I'll start with the first one you asked about keeping his job. I think if he gets eliminated round of 16 or group stage, then I think it's time to go. Quarterfinal did say, okay, you're 2024, we see what going there, but anything below that, yeah, he's gone for me, honestly. For this team to be built up so much to this stage, yeah, he would have to go if they don't meet expectations there. In terms of what is needed to do to ensure that they can get over the line this time around, well, we saw the mistakes against Croatia 2018 semi-final, against Italy in the final as well. Whenever the Italians scored and also the Croatians score, he took some time to make adjustments. And by the time those adjustments were made tactically, the opposition already had that proper foothold of the game as well. So ensuring that you're proactive with these decisions. Yes, you have a goal up, all right. When they equalize or if they equalize, what are we going to do? We can't just sit down and wait as well. So you need to ensure that you're making the decisions. You're planning out those 15-minute periods, those 20-minute periods in that second half, because it came at similar times in terms of the equalizer in both games. So the plan is to ensure that in those crucial moments, that those areas and those situations are tied up defensively, and also there's no imbalance within the midfield as well. Croatia overrun England's midfield, the 2018 one, and the Italians also did quite well defensively and outrun the likes of Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice. So it's imperative that the midfield has that control in proceedings. So and when with somebody like Jude Bellingham, his minutes will need to be managed. A lot of expectation on him. He's progressing nicely, but I just want us to ensure that we're not playing him 90 minutes every single game. It's a long tournament, and if England are able to top this group, it could be another week, 2 weeks. So to get over the line, it's going to have to be to ensure that those mistakes and those lessons learned from 2018 and Euros are fully there, and we don't turn a blind eye to it. So that needs to happen.
You spoke about midfield. You spoke about midfield, and you spoke about the previous tournaments. What transpired? Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice getting
Mhm.
run over in both tournaments. But Calvin Phillips only one game this season. One game for Manchester City, and he walks straight into into the English team. Do you think that's okay when you have the likes of James Ward-Prowse, albeit he plays for Southampton, playing his heart out season after season, one of the most consistent English midfielders in the league over the last 5 seasons, and he can't get a sniff at it. What are your thoughts on that?
That it's an extremely difficult one to play one game and to make a World Cup. It baffles me, but it shows right there the lack of depth where midfield is concerned for England. You know, Gareth Southgate made it clear at a press conference that in the entire Premier League, there's probably only 5 English holding midfielders that are playing week in, week out. So there really is a lack of players to go with. I would have carried James Ward-Prowse based on his abilities with the dead ball and how England are strengths at this dead ball situation. So he's somebody that I would have included, not necessarily in lieu of a Calvin Phillips, but one of the attackers perhaps I would have sacrificed to ensure that he makes a foothold in proceedings. Jordan Henderson, he's not necessarily at 100% either as well. So you're going into the first game of the World Cup knowing that it's going to be Rice and Bellingham. One way or the other, it's going to be Rice or Bellingham. That is a fact. So we know that for sure. Everybody knows that will be that midfield for the game. And maybe if England has a healthy lead in the game, you bring on Calvin for 10, 15, and you bring on Jordan for half an hour. So by the time the group stage is done, then they'll have some minutes under their belts. But we're going into the opening game of the World Cup, and we almost know the 11 of the team.
All right, fair enough. I think we've covered it from a general perspective and a broader scope. So now we're going to narrow it down to the game that we're here to speak about. England versus Iran. What are your expectations from that game? Iran, I know a lot of folks don't know much about the Iranian team. The English media in particular, they've been they've been throwing some curveballs at the Iranians at the press conference, asking questions about what's happening back in Iran and the political turmoil that's happening there. And I tried to keep it more focused on football. And
Mm.
what's his name? Jahan Bash. Jahan Bash
Yeah.
used to play for Brighton, I think a couple of years ago. He would have been familiar with some of these players in the English team. What are your expectations from the game, from both an English fan's perspective and from the Iranian team? What do you think the Iranians would bring to the table, and what do you think England has to counter that?
So personally, I'll tell you why I'm nervous going into this game, because so England's first game of the last World Cup against Tunisia, and there's similarities with Iran and Tunisia. So Iran's head coach is Carlos Queiroz, who was Sir Alex Ferguson's assistant at Manchester United, and he is defense first and everything else after. So Iran plays that 4-1-4-1 system. Iran conceded the least number of goals out of everybody at the last World Cup. They only conceded two, and even a Spanish team with the likes of Diego Costa and Iniesta and company took time to break this team down to eke out and squeeze a 1-0 victory. Portugal as well, were held to a 1-0 draw by Iran as well. This team is no pushover, and England have shown that they have a challenge with breaking down teams with a low block, a real challenge, and that has been evident for quite some time. So I am concerned about that, to be quite frank with you, and that's one of the reasons why I don't expect many goals from this fixture in particular. What England has a strength with is their strength from set pieces. So a lot of tall players with Harry Maguire and company, they can head in a ball from a corner kick, and also players from free kicks as well. That's basically the avenue that I'm looking at if England are going to be able to exploit the Iranian team. But Iran is going to be stubborn. They will treat this point like a victory if they're able to hold on to that 0-0. That is exactly the way that they're treated, and you can only anticipate what it will mean back in England as well, the pressure that will be under as well to get points against the US and Wales. So this is already a must-win game for England, one. But in terms of to neutralize, to try to pull out the Iranian team, it's going to be a challenge. But if there is an avenue outside of the set pieces, then it would have to be the wider areas. So most likely, England is supposed to have not Kyle Walker, but Luke Shaw on the left and Trippier on the right. So Luke Shaw is expected to provide that width. Trippier will not be so adventurous. So the onus will be on that Luke Shaw to ensure that that link-up play with whoever is with him on that left-hand side can play those quick passes, because that will ensure that there's no set organization for the Iranian defense. If you're a bit labored with possession and patient, then you're giving them more time to settle. So that is why I'm gonna say, for me, I have it as a 1-0 England. That's the prediction that I have. I have a 1-0 England for this game in particular, and I expect it to be grind out victory. I really hope I'm wrong about this, but just to see how the way that the Iranians have coped and what they have done in previous tournaments, and even Argentina back in 2014 as well. Messi had to score a last-minute winner to beat them as well. So and this Iranian team unbeaten in 3, while England haven't won in 6. So it's a few teething pains. Exactly. So a few teething pains, but as the match goes on, if the England team are quick and efficient, yeah, it could open up.
Right. And an English team that I think they're void for creativity, in my opinion, especially coming out of the midfield. Looking back at the last World Cup, number of penalties, Harry Kane got a goal in both, but there were a number of penalties. One of the goals, a deflected effort from Ruben Loftus-Cheek off Harry Kane. They awarded him that goal as well. And you look at stuff like these and you say, but England have so much, how do I put this, exciting players. They have the likes of Phil Foden, they have Harry Kane, they have all these exciting players to watch for their respective club teams. Yet when they come in the English team, it looks so much different. And I know folks will say club football and international football are totally different. But again, what's England missing from that middle area there? Because when you have Harry Kane in his team, you just need to play the ball forward. He will find it. At times, he's even going to come deep for it just to ensure that he can link that play up. But for the English team, four penalties I think in the last World Cup, four or
Yeah,
three penalties,
three.
deflected effort, and then one goal from I think on the right side of the 18 yards somewhere there. But
Mm.
again, what's happening there? What does Gareth Southgate need to work on in that area to ensure that Harry Kane has the service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can't treat every game like it's going to be the same. What Iran is going to present is different from what the Americans are going to present from different from Wales. So it's been touted that Mason Mount will play tomorrow, which is fine because he offers that spark and creativity that can unlock defenses. But Mason Mount might not be the man against the American team or against the Welsh. So you have to be able to ensure that you know exactly which player in particular that is that in that number 10 position that can offer that proper service. Against Iran, I don't
Madison.
have a problem. With Mason Mount, I don't have any problem at all against Iran. But perhaps against the Welsh, no, I'll be going for a more counter-attacking style of play against them and against the Americans as well. But against Iran, yeah, you're gonna need that person in Mason Mount behind a Hurricane, 100%. I know Chelsea man, but yeah.
James Madison. No?
James Madison. James Madison is an option as well. I'm not sure if he's going to start, but it might be a scenario where Mount gets 60 and Madison gets 30 minutes thereabouts. So along
Okay.
those lines, yeah. But I expect Mount to get the start. Gareth Southgate, he puts full trust and faith in the men that have done well for him. So Mount, Pickford, Harry Kane, and Harry Maguire. Those are four players that you know for sure will always be part of a starting 11.
All right. I'm not sure if that's the correct way to go about it, Gareth Southgate. I hope you're hearing this. I know you watch halftime TV as well. So I, I, we'll talk about it after the World Cup finishes. But
Mhm.
you said your prediction 1-0 for England for this one. All right, folks. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Please let us know in the comment section. England versus Iran 1-0. Goal scorer? You going as far as saying a goal scorer? Arcade?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Harry Maguire, a header from a corner kick. Redemption.
There's another Harry on the score sheet. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. 1-1 draw. I'm going to call a draw. Primarily, this is primarily from an emotional perspective. Just because Simon said 1-0, I'm saying 1-1. All right. All right. So thanks to everyone who's tuned in this evening. We won't keep you any much longer. We want you to share your views and your feedback in the comment section as well, and we'll be here tomorrow evening to do another preview. We probably will do a recap as well of the day's event. There are a couple more games that are being played tomorrow. Won't do a preview for those, but I'm pretty sure every one of you guys will be tuning into those. A very big game coming up. The Netherlands against Senegal. That's a big game to watch as well. So if you haven't, Netherlands against Senegal. Let's just take your prediction on that as well, Simon. Netherlands, Senegal. Senegal without Sadio Mane.
Yeah. I think you just lose the spine of the team right there. I'm going to go with Netherlands 2, Senegal 0 for that game. Yeah,
all right.
Looking good. Yeah.
And what's the final game? I don't even remember the last game.
Yeah, USA Wales.
USA Wales. I'm going to call Wales to win that one. Wales 1-0 in my opinion. Okay. I think Berhalter is struggling right now, and Tyler Adams granted the captaincy earlier, 23 years of age, his youngest captain at the World Cup. It says a lot. And not saying Tyler isn't a fantastic player. Does he have what it takes to captain a US team to victory over a Welsh team being led by Gareth Bale? We'll see. But I think it's a 1-0 in favor of the Welsh. What last time they've been to World Cup was in the 50s. So far back, I think. Yep. So I expect them to kick it off with a victory, and then Berhalter will be under even more pressure. So we have England 1-1 for me, 1-0 for Simon. The Netherlands 2-0. I think that's a fair result over Senegal. Edouard Mendy, he's not having the most convincing seasons. Sadio Mane is out. Koulibaly, the same thing, not the most convincing of seasons. And I think the Dutch team with Louis van Gaal coming back in, it should be quite interesting to see how this one plays out. Van Gaal had a good run in the 2014 World Cup with the Netherlands team just before he went to Manchester United, and I expect him to come back in with some exciting football again. And the final game of tomorrow, Wales versus the United States. I'm going for 1-0. Simon, let's hear what your thoughts are on that one.
I'm gonna go with 2-2. Wales 2, United States 2. I'm backing the United States to come second in the group, so I want to see conquer.
Even without a striker? Even without a striker?
Even without a striker, we'll back Tim Weah to score the goal.
All right, we're back in CONCACAF to advance. But again, viewers, subscribers, thanks so very much for tuning in. If you haven't done so as yet, go ahead and check out Reggae Boys commentary. Simon Preston with all the scoop over there. Halftime TV here saying, have a fantastic Sunday evening. Go and get some Sunday dinner, some rice and peas, as the World Cup will resume tomorrow morning very, very early. All right, bless up on yourselves. Peace out. Thanks again for joining us, Simon. We appreciate the company. All right.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.